You know, during the entire time we've been discussing this player, and the trade rumors surrounding him, the trade list that he apparently submitted to his team, this and that, we haven't really gone over any potential returns. We've talked about the teams, but we haven't really talked about the assets involved. And so today, via Frank Seravalli making an appearance on the Coming In Hot podcast, we have ourselves our very first, dare I say, trade idea floating around there regarding this player on the Ottawa Senators and what a package could look like. Let's talk about a player who needs a contract right now. A guy who has been a very strong NHL player throughout the past few years, but whose future with the Sens is all but guaranteed. Of course, you know from the title, today we are talking about Alex DeBRINCAT, a small forward, 5'7", 165 right-handed guy, and a player who had 66 points in 82 games last year. Now, we've already done the entire song and dance, but DeBRINCAT has been a very consistent player, multiple 40-goal seasons, multiple 70-point seasons, and this previous year was sort of a down year in comparison to what we know he is fully capable of. Because of the situation with the Senators and their ownership the past little while, it's been very difficult to label whether or not DeBRINCAT was going to re-sign. And with him and his party submitting a trade list earlier this summer, it makes things very interesting as to where DeBRINCAT is going to go. Stay with Ottawa, or get traded to another team and sign there. He does need a new contract for next season, so not only is the team that's going to acquire him going to have to give up assets, but they're also going to have to shell out some money too. This is where we go over onto the Coming In Hot podcast. It's a show run by Brent Wallace. You also have Jason York and Senators legend Bobby Ryan featured, and they had Daily Faceoff's Frank Seravalli on as a guest in their most recent episode. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and listen to the entire episode yourself. Before we get into this Alex DeBRINCAT trade idea, though, which does involve the Detroit Red Wings, because you know from the title and the thumbnail, I wanted to give a big shout out to today's sponsor. Have you ever Googled yourself and were shocked to see your personal information exposed on a public website? Data brokers are making a fortune selling your information to spammers and others who want to know more about you. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is a tool that helps you identify data brokers exposing your info, and it even lets you submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are required to remove your info if you ask, but they always make it super difficult to do. Let Aura handle it for you. You can try Aura free for 2 weeks using my link, aura.com/lego. The best part is, Aura does a lot more to protect you and your family from online threats you can't see. Identity protection, antiviruses, password management, VPN, and message protection too. All at one affordable price. It's really easy to set up. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. Stop letting others exploit and profit off your private info. Head over to aura.com/lego to start your 2-week free trial. It's also linked below in the description. So, as we said, Frank Seravalli made himself an appearance on the Comin' In Hot show, and this is what he had to say regarding Alex DeBRINCAT and the Detroit Red Wings. The list of guys available to Ottawa on DeBRINCAT's list is weird. He doesn't think that the Sens will get a significant roster player in return. At most, they could get a FILIP ZADINA who hasn't really worked, plus future assets. And you know, this kinda sucks to see. If you're a Senators fan, mostly. Because this is a guy that you shelled out a pretty significant haul in order to get in the first place. Let's revisit the trade that initially sent Alex DeBRINCAT to Ottawa. It was back in the 2022 draft. Take a look at this. DeBRINCAT sent over to Ottawa in exchange for the 7th overall pick in 2022, the 39th overall pick in 2022, and another 3rd in 2024. A legit top 10 pick, and 2 other decent picks as well. That certainly is a haul, and when you think about what DeBRINCAT was able to do, yeah, he had the 60 points, but he wasn't as good as we thought he would be. I say this all the time, but I did have DeBRINCAT drafted on my fantasy team, and he just did not get as many points as the Yahoo people said he would, so I was personally kind of disappointed there. I lost in the finals as well. So yeah, I'm kind of still rubbing salt in that wound, but either way, DeBRINCAT getting traded in a second deal in a package that Frank Seravalli is labeling out as something that wouldn't really be all too great, that is quite demoralizing, I feel, for Pierre Dorion and a lot of Sens fans that have wanted to see this team maximize the value of their assets. I mean, look, FILIP ZADINA coming over as a return, that's not terrible, but FILIP ZADINA definitely has not lived up to the potential everybody knew he had back when he was drafted in 2018. Add on the extra futures, and you turn what is essentially a top 10 pick and some extra picks in Korchinski and the other two things you sent over to Chicago into ZADINA and a few other extra picks. You're really kind of taking the downgrade there, aren't you? Now, I guess you could say in retrospect, oh yeah, ZADINA was taken 6th overall, so maybe it's a little bit of a win, but come on. Let's go over FILIP ZADINA and talk about his profile here. This is a player that definitely has not lived up to his potential. He's 23 years old, so he still has time. Signed till the end of 2025, making $1.8 million a season. There is time for ZADINA to improve, but this most recent season, he had 7 points in 30 games played. It's not looking good if you're trying to project what ZADINA is going to be capable of in the long term. The 40-goal, 75-point potential we thought he had in the 2018 draft has not been fulfilling itself at all, and so if you're really believing in ZADINA, you kind of have to hope that the goal-scoring touch is still there and still present, just laying dormant in ZADINA's profile. Sure, I won't discredit that he has improved his two-way game, his board play, his off-puck play. It's all improved ever since getting drafted, but having 7 points in 30 games is just not going to cut it. And even in the seasons before that when he was producing more, 24 points, 74 games played, 10 goals per year, this was supposed to be a 30-goal scorer. And so, if you're a Sens fan going out there and saying, yeah, Alex DeBRINCAT is on his way out, he doesn't want to be here, whatever, just trade him while you can, while he still has some value. Would you be interested in getting a reclamation project like FILIP ZADINA in return? If you assume you get some similar draft picks to the ones that you gave up in the first DeBRINCAT trade, would you be okay with a guy like ZADINA coming back? Seravalli says right here that he doesn't think that there's a significant roster player that the Sens would be able to get. And so if the best you could get is a FILIP ZADINA, then what are your thoughts on that? If you're a Red Wings fan, I'm pretty sure I know what y'all are thinking. Hey, if it's a second, a third, and FILIP ZADINA for DeBRINCAT, then sign me up and give me that contract myself. I'm going to give him as much money as he needs. Stevie Y should have no problems doing this. Not because DeBRINCAT is the bona fide win-now piece that the Red Wings could use to make a playoff push and win the Cup anytime soon, but because he is a win-now piece that happens to be 25 years old. He could definitely help out the long-term projectability when guys like Raymond, Seider, Edvinsson, Kasper, Wallinder, and all these other players are in their primes. DeBRINCAT very well could be the guy that leads the charge, and so, in theory, this is a trade that works for Detroit. Also, you have the fact that DeBRINCAT is from the Michigan area, so he's definitely got his hometown roots, so there might be an extra incentive for him to want to come over here. And it's all been reported everywhere that the Red Wings would be on his list of teams that he'd be okay with getting traded to, so it does make sense from DeBRINCAT's POV, it does make sense from the Wings' POV, especially when you consider if a DeBRINCAT trade return only includes FILIP ZADINA as the main roster piece going back. I'm sure a lot of Wings fans are going to flood the comment section saying that this is a steal of a trade, but it may be one of the more realistic possibilities, at least according to Frank Seravalli. If you're a Senators fan, let me know in the comments what is it that you would want in Detroit, or from Detroit, instead of FILIP ZADINA and let's say a second or a third. Is ZADINA a second and a third good enough for you? Would you be okay with a trade return like this for DeBRINCAT? For me personally, just value to value, I'm saying no, that's not an equal trade. But if you have no other choice, then I guess you have no other choice. Plain and simple, nothing you could argue with against that. Alex DeBRINCAT is a very talented scorer who had a down year while still getting 60 points. Like, I'm talking about him in fantasy and everything. Sure, he underperformed compared to what everybody thought he'd be able to do, but he still had a boatload of points. So you give this guy an opportunity to really settle in and get comfortable with a new team, and maybe he goes out there and has another 40-goal season. You're playing with a playmaker like Patrick Kane, or whomever else in the NHL is good at making passes, and maybe he gets 40 goals and 70 points again. Whether that happens in Ottawa or some other team like Detroit, who really knows, but if the trade that follows involves FILIP ZADINA as the main piece, man, I'm all of a sudden really hoping even more now that FILIP ZADINA becomes the goal scorer we thought he'd be able to be. It may not ever happen, and my heart says that it might not ever happen, but one can hope, right? So, Wings fans, Senators fans, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What are your opinions on this idea proposed by Frank Seravalli that the Wings might just need to shell out a piece like FILIP ZADINA plus the few extra picks in order to get a trade for DeBRINCAT done? If you're a Sens fan, what would you want instead of ZADINA? What do you think is a more realistic idea as to what DeBRINCAT's value is in a trade? And do you think the uncertainty and him wanting out in the first place diminishes his value this much? Because a young scorer who does need a contract, admittedly, so you're going to have to re-sign him yourself, but a young scorer who gets a lot of points and is a 40-goal guy in most years, going for a player like Zadina? Yeah, no, that doesn't really equate in my opinion, even if you had the picks. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.